Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Have you ever found yourself scrolling through images of ancient wonders, maybe a towering pyramid, an intricate hieroglyph, or that shimmering gold mask of Tutankhamun and just wished you could, well, understand it all?
Yeah.
Get beyond the surface level grandeur and really grasp what made that civilization tick, how it lasted for millennia, and what lessons it might hold for us.
Well, that's pretty much our mission today. We've got a fantastic stack of source material to unpack for you. It ranges from really detailed historical accounts and insightful architectural analyses to profound descriptions of religious practices, the power structures, and even surprisingly intimate details of their interior design and daily life. It's almost like we've been handed the ultimate blueprint for an entire civilization, right? Every detail, every secret passage, kind of laid bare.
Indeed, it's a truly rich tapestry of information. It gives us a comprehensive picture that goes far beyond the usual tomb raiding adventures we see in movies. Our goal in this deep dive is really to extract the most important nuggets, connect the dots between things that might seem separate, and help you grasp the intricate, profound connections that form one of humanity's most enduring, stable, and frankly, utterly fascinating civilizations. We're looking at everything, from the very earliest whispers of settlement along the Nile, right through to the nuanced artistry of their distinctive visual culture, and even the practicalities of their daily existence, all designed hopefully to give you that aha moment.
So, if you're ready to shortcut your way to being genuinely well-informed about ancient Egypt, complete with surprising facts and maybe a few profound realizations about human ingenuity and, well, resilience, then let's truly unpack this incredible history. Let's reveal the depth and the lasting ingenuity of this ancient world. The lifeline of civilization, the Nile and early inhabitants. When we think of ancient Egypt, the first image that almost always comes to mind is the Nile River. And rightly so. I mean, it was absolutely central, the lifeblood of their entire existence. But what was happening there even before the pharaohs and their grand dynasties started shaping the land? What were the very first seeds and how did they take root in such a unique place?
That's a great question. And what's truly fascinating here is just how far back the roots of this civilization actually go. Way deep into prehistory, long before any unified kingdom. Well before 5000 BC, we find these quite vibrant Paleolithic communities, not just small groups, but thriving populations of hunters and gatherers. And here's the interesting part. They weren't just stuck in the immediate Nile Valley. Our sources show they were spread across vast savanna lands, stretching far east and west of the river. So it paints a picture of a much broader, more dynamic early human presence than we might assume, adapting to different ecosystems. It suggests a level of ingenuity and movement that's often underestimated for such early periods.
And the Nile itself played such a critical role, didn't it? Almost miraculous, allowing these early communities to not just survive, but to really flourish and evolve. It wasn't just a river. It was this seasonal giver of life, a constant, predictable force shaping everything from diet to, eventually, their social structures. How did its unique cycle become so foundational?
You've absolutely hit on a critical point there. The rhythm of the Nile wasn't just predictable, it was the very pulse of Egypt, a natural wonder that basically gifted them extraordinary agricultural potential. Each summer, like clockwork, the Nile would swell and flood its banks. And with that flood came this incredibly rich, dark, fertile soil. The famous Black Land carried literally thousands of miles from the African interior. This annual flood, the inundation, was a natural marvel. It created these perfect irrigation basins that retained the floodwaters. This provided an ideal setting for Mesolithic economies, which were more about diverse foraging and fishing, to gradually evolve into Neolithic ones. And these Neolithic economies were fundamentally based on sedentary agriculture. People could settle down, cultivate crops like wheat and barley, domesticate animals, instead of constantly moving for food. This reliable agricultural base, it was an unparalleled advantage.
Right.
So this agricultural surplus, this consistent abundance of food coming so reliably from the Nile, that sounds like the absolute foundational building block for something much bigger than scattered villages. It allowed for something revolutionary, right? Specialization of labor, development of more complex social structures. It wasn't just about feeding people, was it?
Absolutely not. This reliable agricultural surplus was the engine that uniquely shaped Egypt. You see, unlike many other early civilizations battling harsh, unpredictable environments, the Nile's predictable bounty freed up a huge chunk of the population from just subsistence farming. It wasn't just having enough to eat, it was about time and resources. It created leisure time for specialization. So individuals could become artisans, scribes, priests, administrators instead of only farmers. It provided the surplus wealth needed to organize massive public works like large-scale irrigation systems and eventually those monumental structures like the pyramids. And crucially, it laid the blueprint for political elites to emerge and consolidate power. Their rise was totally linked to controlling this abundance and other valuable resources.
Okay, and what kind of resources are we talking about here? How did controlling them translate into power?
Well, we're talking about valuable commodities like copper, essential for tools and weapons, and various precious metals like gold and silver. Gold was particularly abundant in Nubia. To the south, these were vital for emerging new technologies and, of course, for demonstrating wealth and status. So the ability to control the acquisition, the distribution, the manufacturing of these resources alongside the agricultural output gave these early elites immense power. It allowed them to amass wealth, maintain forces, support a growing administrative class, and basically the undeniable groundwork for the highly complex societal structures that eventually led to the unification of Egypt and a phenomenal rise of the pharaohs.
And just for context, the Nile isn't just any river. It's widely recognized as the world's longest, an astonishing natural phenomenon. It descends through many cataracts, these rocky rapids that made river travel tricky but also offered natural defense points all the way down to the sea level of Egypt. Its presence is the single most defining geographical feature, truly the bedrock upon which everything else was built. Now, once that foundation was laid and these early communities started harnessing the Nile's power, how did this fledgling society evolve into the monumental empire we recognize? How do historians map out the thousands of years of pharaohs, pyramids, and power shifts? 2. The grand sweep of history. Major periods and dynasties.
That's a great question, and historians have developed a pretty conventional framework to make sense of this huge, sprawling history. Ancient Egyptian history is generally divided into periods, which broadly correspond to about 30 dynasties of kings. A dynasty is basically a succession of rulers from the same family. Now, these dynasties themselves are further grouped into what we call kingdoms. These are distinct eras, often signifying periods of strong centralized rule, political stability, and immense cultural flourishing. And these kingdoms are punctuated by what we call intermediate periods, times of fragmentation, internal strife, or sometimes external influence.
Okay, so let's dive into these major periods then, starting with what many people consider the iconic age, the era of those classic images we all conjure, the Old Kingdom. What defined this foundational period, often called the Age of the Pyramids?
That's precisely where we start. This is truly the foundational period for so much of what we recognize as ancient Egypt. It all kicks off with the crucial act of unification. Narmer is credited with the monumental achievement of unifying both Upper and Lower Egypt that happened around 3000 BC. It transformed disparate settlements into a single, cohesive state. He established his capital at Memphis, a really strategic spot near the junction of Upper and Lower Egypt, kind of the political and administrative heart. By this time, the land was definitively consolidated under the strong central power of a single king. And this king wasn't just a ruler. He was literally considered the owner of all Egypt, holding absolute dominion over its land, resources, people. It was a period of astonishing organization and centralized power, really exemplified by those colossal monuments.
And this period, despite its initial strength, its architectural grandeur, the seeming omnipotence of the pharaohs, it eventually saw challenges. It wasn't an unbroken reign of glory, was it?
No, definitely not. The Old Kingdom, despite its initial strength and grandeur, eventually ended about 500 years later, around 2130 BC. The strong, centralized government established by the pharaohs began to weaken quite considerably. This weakening allowed for the rise of independent nobles, often provincial governors called nomarchs, who started asserting their own power, building local power bases. The country ultimately fragmented into numerous smaller states. This led to a prolonged period of internal strife that eventually erupted into widespread civil war between these newly independent city-states. This was a challenging, chaotic time for Egyptian unity, often called the First Intermediate Period.
Okay, so after that period of turmoil and fragmentation, how did Egypt manage to stabilize and reunite again? Ushering in the next great era, the Middle Kingdom. Sounds like a remarkable recovery.
It was indeed a remarkable resurgence, a real testament to the enduring idea of a unified Egypt. The stabilization actually came from maybe an unexpected quarter. The nobles based in Thebes, that's a prominent city far south in Upper Egypt. They managed to gradually regain control and reunify the country, showing how local power could coalesce into national leadership. This marked the beginning of the Middle Kingdom, running roughly from 2130 to 1580 BC. This period is broadly characterized by a return to prosperity, a renewed sense of order, and a significant cultural flowering, especially in literature. It contrasted sharply with the civil strife before it. Also a shift in royal burial practices, moving away from giant pyramids.
But this stability, it seems, wasn't eternal for the Middle Kingdom either. External forces once again posed a significant threat, marking another dramatic turning point.
That's correct. Around 1800 BC, Egypt faced a really formidable and technologically superior challenge. The country was overrun by an invading group known as the Hyksos, who came from Western Asia. Now, the Hyksos possessed a distinct military advantage that the Egyptians at the time sorely lacked. They wielded horses and chariots. This was truly revolutionary military tech for the era. This technological superiority allowed the Hyksos to pretty easily defeat the Egyptian forces. For about 200 years, the Hyksos primarily inhabited and controlled Lower Egypt, exerting significant influence and forcing the Egyptians to pay them tribute. This was a period of foreign domination, often called the Second Intermediate Period, a significant blow to Egyptian sovereignty and pride.
So the Egyptians eventually expelled the Hyksos, pushed them out. This sounds like a powerful national resurgence, a moment of immense pride and renewed strength, setting the stage for perhaps Egypt's most glorious era.
It was indeed a truly pivotal moment, and one that forged a new, more outward-looking Egypt. The expulsion of the Hyksos was spearheaded by a daring Theban insurgency driven by this desire to reclaim their homeland and restore Egyptian glory. This successful uprising founded the 18th dynasty, which then initiated what many historians consider the most brilliant and glorious period in ancient Egyptian history, the New Kingdom. This spanned from approximately 1580 to 1085 BC. It marked a period of unprecedented power, military might, and international influence.
Right, this is where we really see Egypt transform from just a powerful regional state into a true empire, expanding significantly beyond its traditional borders, asserting dominance on the international stage. How far did this empire actually stretch?
Precisely. Under dynamic and really ambitious leadership during the New Kingdom, Egypt expanded its territorial reach significantly. They conquered lands of the Upper Nile, primarily extending control deep into Nubia to the south, gaining access to vast gold mines and other resources. But their ambitions also stretched northward and eastward. They extended influence and direct control into ancient Syria and Palestine. This transformed Egypt from a regional power into a formidable imperial force. They established garrisons, collected tribute, engaged in sophisticated diplomacy with other great powers of the Near East, truly reaching the apex of its political and military might. This era also saw an explosion of temple building, reflecting their newfound wealth and confidence. Third, the structure of power, politics, and key rulers.
We've touched on the king, the pharaoh, and their central, almost divine role, but let's really deep dive into their specific responsibilities, their unique position, and the broader, incredibly intricate power structure supporting their absolute authority. What was it really like to be the pharaoh? What did that enormous responsibility entail?
Well, the king's role was incredibly far-reaching. It was deeply intertwined with the well-being of the entire nation, kind of blurring the lines between political, military, and spiritual leadership. In practical terms, he was expected to protect his people from outside enemies through military strength, strategic alliances. He also bore responsibility for shielding them from natural misfortunes like famine by meticulously managing resources, overseeing grain storage. He was the supreme judge, responsible for maintaining justice and cosmic order, they called it Ma'at, within the country. But critically, beyond these earthly duties, the king had profound religious obligations. He had to perform the essential rituals believed to ensure the Nile's vital floods. That yearly event was absolutely indispensable for agriculture, and therefore the very survival of the civilization. So this made him not just a political leader, but a divine intermediary, the living embodiment of the god Horus, ensuring the god's favor.
He sounds like a supreme ruler, almost impossibly isolated from the very people he governed due to this divine status. It paints a picture of immense, almost unfathomable power, maybe even loneliness at the top.
He was precisely that. As the son of a god, the king stood far, far above the rest of the population, a living deity on earth. His divinity meant he had personal contact only with his immediate family and the very highest priests and officers of the court, the general populace. They would typically only see the king on great feast days, during grand processions or ceremonies, and even then, often from quite a distance. This maintained an aura of mystique and sacred authority around the ruler, reinforcing his unique, almost unattainable position at the apex of society. This distance was, a deliberate part of maintaining his divine mystique and unquestionable authority.
And the term pharaoh itself, which we use so readily today, it has an interesting history, doesn't it? It wasn't always the common title.
It does. And that's a common misconception. The ancients didn't actually use the term pharaoh, which literally means great house or palace in the Old and Middle Kingdoms. Initially, it was a designation for the royal palace itself. It only came into common use as a direct reference to the king around 1500 BCE during the New Kingdom. Before that, they were simply called kings or referred to by their specific royal titles. This linguistic shift kind of highlights the evolving understanding and presentation of the monarch's role.
What about his immediate circle? He couldn't possibly run every single aspect of such a vast, complex country alone. He must have had a formidable administrative structure.
Oh, absolutely not. No single individual could manage it all. The pharaoh was greatly aided by a powerful administrative apparatus headed by a vizier or chief minister. Sometimes, to manage the geography, there was even one vizier for Upper Egypt and another for the Nile Delta, showing how complex the regional administration was. These viziers headed a large and increasingly elaborate class of scribes. These scribes were the absolute backbone of the administration, the literate elite. They were responsible for meticulous record-keeping, collecting dues and taxes, and crucially, supervising the organized labor needed for managing the Nile's waters. That was a massive undertaking, coordinating huge numbers of people for irrigation, dike maintenance, public works. Their control over resources, information, and daily life was immense, highly influential people.
And beyond the administrative, there was clearly a deep spiritual hierarchy too, right? Supporting the king's divine role and the whole religious framework. What role did the priests play?
Absolutely. A separate, equally important hierarchy of priests helped the rulers carry out the countless religious rituals, especially those concerned with ensuring the king's immortality and the land's well-being through divine favor. High-ranking priests sometimes wore distinctive leopard skins during ceremonies, a priestly attribute linked to beliefs about regeneration, rebirth, even the sun god Ra. They performed daily offerings, poured libations, burned incense, maintained the sacred temples. There was also a distinct class of judges who settled disputes, particularly over property and land, ensuring a semblance of legal order and maintaining mat locally. These various branches worked together, all ultimately serving the pharaoh.
And during the later periods, particularly the Middle and New Kingdoms, a strong, organized military emerges. This wasn't just for defense, was it? Suggests a shift in their ambitions.
Yes, exactly. While earlier periods had more localized militias, Egypt during the Middle and New Kingdoms developed a truly large and professional army. This military wasn't just for defense. As we mentioned, it became a potent tool for expansion. This allowed them to conquer parts of Nubia in the south, vital for its gold, and also ancient Syria and Palestine to the northeast. This projection of military power allowed Egypt to significantly expand its reach, establish itself as a major imperial power, projecting influence far beyond the Nile Valley, securing trade routes and enriching the royal treasury.
Okay, let's shine a spotlight on some of the most impactful rulers who really left their mark, starting with the Old Kingdom's unifiers and monumental builders.
All right, started with the Old Kingdom, we have Narmer. As we discussed, unified Upper and Lower Egypt, established Memphis around 3000 BC, basically founding the unified state. His famous palette depicts this key moment. Then there's Khufu, known to the Greeks as Cheops. He was the builder of the Great Pyramid at Giza. This was the largest single building constructed up to that time, a monumental undertaking that truly speaks to the unparalleled power, organizational capacity, and sheer ambition of the Old Kingdom. It wasn't just a tomb, it was a cosmic statement.
Moving into the New Kingdom, a period of immense power, empire, and some truly fascinating, even controversial figures. Who stands out there?
Indeed, Thutmose III is a prime example of a New Kingdom pharaoh, often called the Napoleon of Egypt. He created an absolute government backed by a powerful army. He led at least 17 military campaigns, expanding Egypt into a vast empire, securing unprecedented wealth. Then there's Hatshepsut, a truly remarkable and, for her time, revolutionary figure. Egypt's first undisputed female pharaoh, reigning from about 1473 to 1458 BCE. Under her rule, Egyptian art and trade flourished beautifully. She sent expeditions to Punt, brought back exotic goods. What's really interesting, and maybe controversial for the time, is the deviant royal succession that allowed her to rule. She declared herself pharaoh while serving as regent for her young nephew, Thutmose III. Sadly, after her death, her resentful nephew later sought to erase her memory by destroying or defacing her monuments, a chilling act of political vengeance. Next, we have Amenhotep IV, who later famously became known as Akhenaten. Came to the throne determined to resist the immense power of the priesthood of Ammon. Supported by his family, especially Nefertiti, he made a clean break with traditional worship, challenging centuries of polytheism by instituting a revolutionary cult focused exclusively on the sun disk, Aten. He went to extreme lengths, closing other temples, smashing statues, impounding their revenues. It was a total state overhaul, even relocating the capital to a new city, Akhetaten. His great royal wife, Nefertiti was famously known for her pivotal role alongside him in this radical religious revolution, worshipping Aten as the sole deity, appearing almost as his co-ruler. Following Akhenaten's revolutionary but ultimately short-lived reforms, his successor, Tutankhamun, abandoned the monotheistic attempt. Under the influence of powerful advisors, he restored the traditional temples, revived the old rites, reinstated Amun as the supreme god, basically reverted Egypt to its polytheistic roots. By a remarkable quirk of fate, his largely undisturbed tomb, discovered in the Valley of the Kings, made him the most famous pharaoh to us today. An unparalleled glimpse into royal burial. Then there's Ramses II, often called Ramses the Great, one of the most celebrated and longest-reigning pharaohs. He reigned for an astonishing 60-plus years, longer than almost any other pharaoh. Best known for his military leadership like the Battle of Kadesh against the Hittites, and for constructing numerous massive monuments across Egypt. Really transformed the landscape. Finally, bringing us to the very end of ancient Egypt's independent pharaonic rule, we have Cleopatra VII. She was the last pharaoh famously embroiled in the internal politics of the mighty Roman Empire. Her alliances and relationships with powerful Romans like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony are legendary. She skillfully used her charisma and intellect to try and preserve Egypt's independence against Rome's rising power. Her name, Cleopatra, actually means her father's glory in Greek, reflecting her Macedonian Greek lineage from the Ptolemaic dynasty, who ruled Egypt after Alexander the Great. Her story marks the ultimate absorption of Egypt into the Roman sphere, ending an incredible 3,000-year legacy of pharaonic rule. For the soul of Egypt, religion and beliefs.
It's truly impossible to talk about ancient Egypt without delving deeply into their religion and beliefs. It wasn't just rituals or gods, it permeated every aspect of their lives, from the grandest monuments and the pharaoh's duties to the most mundane decisions of a farmer. It was the bedrock, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Religion was the guiding principle, influencing every phase of Egyptian life, shaping their worldview profoundly. At its core was their profound belief in the soul, which they called the Ka. They believed the Ka came into being with the body and reigned integrally connected with it throughout life, often visualized as an ethereal twin or double representing the life force. More than just animation, it was one's enduring essence.
And this belief that the Ka was inextricably linked to the physical body, that had enormous implications for what happened after death, didn't it? Explains so much about their monumental efforts.
Crucially, yes. They believed that at death, the Ka would temporarily leave the body. But for true immortality and a successful journey to the next world, the Ka had to eventually return and reunite with its original body. This meant the physical body absolutely had to be preserved, meticulously, permanently. If the body were lost or destroyed, the Ka would be tragically forced to wander aimlessly for eternity, never finding rest or achieving the afterlife. This profound belief explains their intense focus on elaborate mummification, building incredibly durable tombs, and providing grave goods, every effort for eternal well-being.
So this promise of immortality wasn't just for the elite, the kings and queens. It seems it evolved into a broader aspiration, a hope for the common person, too.
That's a perceptive point. While belief in immortality was initially thought to be restricted to kings, a privilege of their divine status, essential for cosmic order over time, it was gradually extended to common people as well. This democratization of the afterlife, particularly evident from the Middle Kingdom onwards, meant everyone, to the best of their means, prepared for this journey. They commissioned coffins, acquired funerary texts like the Book of the Dead, underwent mummification. It shows the pervasive influence across all social strata, a shared hope for eternity.
And their pantheon of gods was incredibly diverse, often with fascinating composite forms, blending human and animal traits, reflecting the powerful forces of nature around them. Let's meet some key deities.
They were indeed a rich and varied collection, each embodying specific aspects of their world. We have Osiris, god of the underworld, identified as the dead king, typically depicted mummified, holding the crook and flail symbols of kingship. His wife and sister Isis was the divine mother, a powerful protector goddess, often shown protecting coffins, embodying magic and healing. Their son, Horus, the falcon god, originally the sky god, was powerfully identified with the reigning king during his lifetime, establishing a direct link between the earthly ruler and the divine. This trio formed a central myth, but it wasn't all harmony. We also have Seth, god of storms, chaos, violence, notorious as Osiris's murderer and Horus's rival, depicted with the head of a mysterious animal, maybe a pig, or as a truly disruptive figure. Then there's Hathor, more benevolent, goddess of children, music, motherhood, often seen as a cow or a woman with cow's horns and a sun disk, symbolizing nourishment. The jackal-headed god Anubis was patron of embalmers, god of the necropolis, overseeing the dead, guiding souls. Ra, the sun god of Heliopolis, perhaps the supreme judge and creator, typically falcon-headed with a sun disk, radiating authority. From Thebes, we have Amun, sacred animals, the ram and goose, embodied power and fertility, later merged with Ra to become Amun-Ra, king of the gods. Hapi was the god of the Nile flood, vital for agriculture, usually depicted as a man with female breasts, symbolizing the flood's nourishing bounty. Mot was the goddess of truth, justice, cosmic order. Depicted as a woman with an ostrich feather, the feather used in the weighing of the heart ceremony in the afterlife. Mut was Mon's wife, originally a vulture goddess, later depicted as a woman, forming the powerful Theban triad with Amun and Khonsu. Ta was the creator god of Memphis, patron of craftsmen, often depicted mummified, emphasizing ancient creative authority. Said to have spoken the world into existence, a more singular figure was Aten, the god of the sun disk, worshipped exclusively during Akhenaten's revolutionary reign, a brief but dramatic monotheistic period. And finally Bes, a dwarf deity, helper of women in childbirth, household guardian, protector against snakes. A more homely, approachable deity, often with a fearsome yet comical face.
The mummification process itself, central to their beliefs, involved specific tools and incredibly precise rituals, didn't it? Not just wrapping a body. It was complex science and art.
Absolutely. An incredibly sophisticated, ritualized process evolving over millennia. During mummification, after certain vital organs were removed, brain, lungs, liver, stomach, intestines, these were preserved separately. The internal organs, excluding the brain, which was discarded, were placed inside special vessels, canopic jars. These weren't just containers. Each was guarded by specific deities, housed a particular organ, ensuring completeness for the afterlife. Intestines by Hapi and Nephthys, stomach by Duamutef and Neith, liver by Kabesanof and Selket, lungs by Imseti and Isis. The heart, seat of intellect, was usually left in the body. The whole process could take up to 70 days. Elaborate purification, dehydration using natron salt, then careful wrapping in linen, often with amulets and spells tucked in.
What about other religious artifacts or symbols that might feel familiar today from museums or pop culture? Elements that have endured.
Definitely. The Ankh is probably the most widely recognized, that circle-topped cross representing life, an enduring symbol of vitality, breath, eternity. Some forms even have a cat on top, reflecting their reverence for animals. Speaking of cats, they were especially honored, not just pets, but sacred animals, revered for grace, controlling pests. Goddesses like Sekhmet, lioness head, symbolizing healing destruction, and Bast Bastet, cat head, representing joy, fertility, home, illustrate this veneration. Another interesting artifact is the bronze situla, a bucket-like vessel holding holy water for sprinkling in ceremonies, libations, offerings, often beautifully decorated with images of gods, rulers, embodying ritual purity, each item imbued with powerful symbolic meaning. The aesthetic of eternity. Egyptian art.
Egyptian art is instantly recognizable, those distinctive profiles, rigid poses, vibrant colors. But there's clearly a rigorous system behind it, isn't there? Not free artistic expression like we think of it now. It was about something more functional, more profound.
You've hit on a core truth. It was a highly codified system, driven by one purpose: eternity. Since paintings and relief sculptures of the dead were meant as substitutes for the body, a backup for the ka if the mummy was damaged, a complete, enduring image was vital for the afterlife. This paramount belief led artists to follow a very strict set of rules and conventions, devised as early as 4000 BCE, changing surprisingly little for millennia, often based on a simple grid system dictating proportions, positioning, scale, ensuring consistency and clarity above all else.
So it wasn't about realism like we might think of it today. It was about conveying specific information, a timeless essence, ensuring the spirit's continuity.
Precisely. Entirely about clarity, completeness, conveying essential info for the afterlife and social order. For instance, depicting humans followed the strict law of frontality: head, arms, legs, feet, and profile, but eyes and torso presented frontally. The seemingly unnatural pose showed every characteristic part, ensuring the ka had a complete representation. Plus, figures were meticulously scaled by importance, pharaohs always largest, towering over everyone, not perspective choice, a clear statement of divine status.
Tell us about the painstaking process of creating these stunning murals, especially in tombs. Sounds like a detailed step-by-step procedure, almost a sacred act.
It was indeed meticulous, ritualized, often by highly skilled craftsmen. First, the rough-hewn walls were smoothed with plaster, sometimes multiple layers. Once dry, artists drew horizontal lines, often a grid, in red ochre. Figures and animals were precisely arranged along these lines by strict canons, planned to tell a story usually from the deceased's life, a ritual, their afterlife journey. Outlines were incised or painted, Then vibrant mineral pigments applied, bright reds, yellows, with black and blue-green for contrast. Very little shading, giving that flat look, emphasizing symbolic over realistic depiction. The ultimate aim. An idealized world free from aging, disease, injury, death, except maybe for inferior beings like foreigners or animals, which could be more naturalistic.
And the sculpture of ancient Egypt is equally iconic, recognizable for its strength, dignity, often imposing scale. What defined Old Kingdom sculpture?
That's right. Old Kingdom sculpture especially is characterized by immense strength, quiet dignity, a profound sense of eternal presence. Statuary was mainly for temples and tombs representing gods, kings, deceased individuals, giving the Ka a physical home. Pharaohs often depicted sitting erect, attentive, stiff, rigid, yet with remarkably lifelike heads. Like the seated Khafre statue embodying this aesthetic, solid, block-like form from the hard diorite stone. Khafre looks straight ahead, eyes seem remarkably alive. Right hand of fist, once held the symbol of office. Horus, behind his head, reminds us of his divinity. Throne inscribed proclaiming him king of Upper and Lower Egypt. This quiet aloofness symbolizes eternal strength, power. Interestingly, as the subject's importance decreases, formality relaxes, realism increases. Like the remarkably individualistic scribe statues, vital functionaries, not divine.
And of course, the Great Sphinx at Giza is probably the most famous example, isn't it? Its sheer scale, enigmatic presence, immense.
It is without doubt the most familiar, impressive monumental sculpture. Carved directly from living rock at Giza, head of a pharaoh, likely Khafre, symbolizing him as an incarnation of Ra, the sun god, combined with a powerful lion's body. Towers almost 65 feet, stretches 240 feet long, incredible engineering, artistry. Gazes towards the rising sun, reinforcing its solar connection. While the Giza Sphinx is human-headed, others might have ram heads, Amun, or hawk heads, depending on symbolism. Powerful guardians.
And for the deceased, beyond the mummy, sculpture played a vital role ensuring eternal existence. What about the sarcophagus?
Absolutely. The sarcophagus was crucial, a beautifully carved stone case housing the linen-wrapped mummy protecting it. But sculptors were also ordered to carve a detailed portrait of the pharaoh. This portrait sculpture was placed at the tomb near the sarcophagus, sometimes in a hidden chamber to serdab. It acted as a substitute body if the mummy was lost or destroyed, ensuring the Ka always had a vessel. We see this in Tutankhamun's tomb, his innermost coffin itself, solid gold, inlaid, a testament to this belief.
The Middle Kingdom, after the Old Kingdom's collapse and instability, how did this impact their sculpture, style, survival?
It marked a fascinating evolution. Sadly, much sculpture from this period was destroyed by the Hyksos, leaving a fragmented record. But surviving works show a wide range. While royal statues often remained idealized, regal, there was a notable shift towards depicting a more careworn, realistic figure. A fragment of Sesostris III's portrait is a prime example. Skillful, sensitive carving. The expression suggests none of the Old Kingdom's aloof divinity. Instead, the firm mouth, prominent worry lines convey a troubled, weary look. Hinting at leadership challenges in a transitional period, reflects the burden of kingship.
The Amarna period under Akhenaten sounds like a truly radical departure. Not just religion, but art too, almost startlingly different.
It was indeed a dramatic, conscious shift, a total break from centuries of tradition. Akhenaten consolidated religion under Aten, the sun disk. This directly influenced art, leading to the Amarna style. Much of Akhenaten's portraiture shows striking, almost exaggerated realism, unlike previous pharaohs. Elongated head, pointed chin, heavy lips, long, slender neck. Not unflattering. A new, almost spiritual, idealized realism, emphasizing his unique connection to Aten. Similarly, much art from his reign embraced a more naturalistic, even intimate look. Royal family and daily life scenes, holding hands with children. The famous limestone bust of Nefertiti exemplifies this. Expression of almost mannered sensitivity, beauty, an iconic departure from earlier rigid forms. Also worth remembering, Hatshepsut's earlier controversial succession, declared herself pharaoh while regent for Thutmose III. He later destroyed her monument's power struggles, impacting artistic legacy.
And from the New Kingdom, the most famous pharaoh by pure discovery, Tutankhamun, what did his tomb reveal about New Kingdom sculpture and craftsmanship?
That would be Tutankhamun. His tomb was an unparalleled archaeological miracle, one of the greatest treasures, his gold funerary mask, found within his largely undisturbed tomb. 22 pounds of solid gold inlaid with lapis lazuli, quartz, semi-precious stones, embodies New Kingdom luxury arts mastery, belief in magnificent afterlife provisions. Beyond the mask, his tomb revealed an extraordinary collection. Exquisitely crafted thrones, chairs from exotic woods like ebony, beautiful jewelry, containers from stone, metal. These items, like his ceremonial throne, were often elaborate structures encrusted with gold, ivory inlays, painted symbolic imagery. Seating function clearly secondary to displaying wealth, grandeur, power. An unparalleled glimpse into New Kingdom royal workshop's richness. Stones of power and eternity. Egyptian architecture.
From the exquisite details of art, we transition naturally to architecture. The sheer scale, the permanence, the incredible engineering, just awe-inspiring. Defines ancient Egypt for many. How did they achieve it? What were the defining traits?
Absolutely. Egyptian architecture is fundamentally defined by massive, solid construction, profound emphasis on perpetuity. The aim, build for eternity, structures to withstand time, ensure eternal rest or worship. Structurally, consistent use of simple, imposing forms, very few moldings, prevalence of rectangular shapes, straight, rigid lines, conveying immense strength, stability, unchanging order.
What materials did they have, given the monumental scale? How did they manage to transport and cut such enormous blocks?
Primarily sun-dried mud bricks, soft but readily available for domestic, less permanent structures. Later, crucially for monuments, more durable stones. Limestone was favored, softer than granite, relatively easy to quarry, cut, shape using copper, later bronze tools. For more robust or decorative elements, obelisks, statues, foundations, they used granite. Very hard, durable, requiring immense effort to quarry and carve, often using dolerite pounders. Choice of material depended on scale, intended permanence, but the logistics. Quarrying, transporting millions of tons of stone, often long distances, involved vast, organized labor, ingenious techniques using sledges, ramps, water transport.
And the construction methods for these massive projects must have been sophisticated, even without modern machines. How did they put them together?
Ingeniously effective. Relied on immense human power, clever engineering. For pyramids, mastabas, lower walls often had a core of rubble faced with finer, precisely cut blocks. For temples, palaces, mainly post and lintel construction, are trabeated. Think a giant doorway. Strong vertical post columns holding up heavy horizontal beam slintels. Simple, incredibly effective system. Allowed large open interiors, maintained structural integrity. For pyramid scale, likely used massive earthen ramps, built around or leading up to haul heavy blocks. Once finished, ramps painstakingly dismantled. Testament to organizational prowess, sheer number of laborers they could mobilize.
Let's classify their architecture, starting with the iconic tombs, perhaps the most famous Old Kingdom structures, defining so much of their afterlife beliefs.
The earliest funerary structures for commoners were mastabas. Mud brick, rectangular sloping sides, flat roof like a large bench. Underground burial chambers, above-ground chapels, offering rooms with reliefs, paintings. Provided narratives, ensured offerings for the ka. Initially, royal relatives, officials also buried under mastabas. Over time, these evolved. Several diminishing-sized mastabas stacked led to the stepped pyramid. A large grouping of mastabas, a city of the dead, was an acropolis. The stepped pyramid of Djoser or Zoser at Saqqara is pivotal. Designed by Imhotep, first recorded artist-architect of Western history. First truly monumental stone building. Revolutionary shift from mud brick, part of a larger mortuary complex, setting precedent. Another fascinating example showing their learning curve is the Bent Pyramid, King Sneferu's reign. 2575-2551 BC. Started at steep 55 degrees, flattened to 43 mid-construction due to structural problems. Cracking gave its unusual bent shape, a visible record of ancient engineering challenges.
And then, of course, the pyramids of Giza, ultimate symbols of ancient Egypt, wonders of the ancient world. What makes them so grand, enduring?
Indeed, the pyramids of Giza are the grandest Old Kingdom monuments, a universal wonder. Built by three successive 4th Dynasty kings, Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure. The Pyramid of Khufu, Cheops, is largest, covers 13 acres. Piled 2.3 million blocks of precisely cut stone, averaged 2.5 tons each to 480 feet high. Rigid, straight lines define its simple yet immensely powerful triangular shape, perfect geometry. Design-wise, each built on almost perfectly square ground plan, aligned to cardinal points testament to astronomical knowledge. Base vastly greater than height suggests immense solidity, permanence, unshakable earth connection. Inside, relatively simple. Largely solid stone, except meticulous passageways, galleries, crucial kings and queens' chambers housing sarcophagi. After burial, large ceiling blocks slid down passageways to permanently seal the tomb, incredibly difficult for robbers. Workers exited via concealed escape passages, vanished as if tomb sealed itself. Shows determination to protect sacred spaces, even from builders. Extreme measures.
The Middle Kingdom faced weakened power, invasions. How did this impact tomb architecture, a shift away from grand, visible pyramids?
Marked a significant evolution. Weakened pharaohs, threat of invasion robbery made colossal, easily identifiable pyramids impractical, risky. Many smaller mud brick pyramids, mastabas, may have been built, but crumbled over time. So more permanent, secure tombs were prepared. Rock-cut tombs, carved directly into valley cliffs, like at Beni Hassan. These Beni Hassan tombs are characteristic Middle Kingdom, hollowed from living rock. Often shallow columnar porch, leading to columned hall, burial chamber, all carved from solid stone cliff face. Amenemhet's tomb's columnar hall shows columns carved from living rock, even a suspended broken column reflecting natural stone form. Interestingly, shafts, often fluted style, later influenced Greek architects. Fascinating cross-cultural link, offered better concealment.
So this tradition of hidden rock-cut tombs continued into the New Kingdom, like the Valley of the Kings, rather than returning to exposed pyramids.
Precisely. New Kingdom practice. Burying pharaohs, nobles in tombs hidden deep in cliffs west of Nile Valley of Kings, Valley of Queens, not Grand Pyramids. Strategic concealment was a direct response to constant tomb robbery threat. Aimed to protect royal burials, precious contents, the body itself, for eternity. Elaborately decorated inside, but inconspicuous outside.
If pyramids define the Old Kingdom, then truly grand temples define the New Kingdom. Seem to be the architectural masterpieces then, not just for the dead, but for the living, their gods.
Exactly right. Impressive edifices built to honor gods. Powerful symbols of divine favor, royal piety, imperial power. Egyptian temples, characteristically rectangular, meticulously oriented east-west, aligned with sun's path, emphasizing solar connection, cosmic order. Unlike tombs, temples were vibrant centers of religious activity, public life.
Tell us more about the key features making these temples so distinctive, awe-inspiring. What would a visitor encounter?
At the entrance, a visitor first met a colossal gateway, a pylon. Massive trapezoidal structure, often carved with pharaoh's military triumphs. Led into open court, setting grand stage for a sacred precinct. Another standard, highly recognizable feature flanking pylons. Obelisks. Tall, tapering four-sided stone shafts, usually monolithic, single-piece. Pyramidal apex often capped with electrum, gold-silver alloy, to catch sun's rays brilliantly. Derived from sacred Benben stone, worshipped as Amun's manifestation at Heliopolis. Dawn rays caught Benben first, believed God's dwelling. Obelisks, powerful conduits of divine energy. Colossal statues of pharaohs, larger than life, also standard, reinforcing rulers' divine connection. Power at temple threshold. Within walled enclosures, temples often contain hypostyle halls. Immense columned halls, appearing from distances, sheer masonry mass, overwhelming scale. Dense columns created forest-like effect. Light filtered from high clerestory windows. Mystical atmosphere. Temple of Amun at Karnak boasts incredible hypostyle hall. 134 freestanding columns, 16 rows, some over 70 feet high. Engineering aesthetic marvel. Must have silenced visitors in awe. Purpose multifaceted. Built by Pharaoh's command, dedicated to favorite gods, ensuring divine favor. Also crucial practical religious function. Funeral, chapel, mortuary temple after Pharaoh's death. People brought offerings to honor deceased ruler, ensure afterlife prosperity. Some temples just for God's cult, others for deified Pharaoh's cult.
And prime examples of these incredible New Kingdom temples must have dominated the landscape.
The ancient temple at Luxor on Nile's east bank is magnificent. Begun around 1200 BC, mainly by Amenhotep III, Ramses II. Added onto by succeeding dynasties, growing complex, grand, famously connected to immense Karnak complex by Monumental Street, 3.5 kilometers long, lined with hundreds of sphinxes. Awe-inspiring professional route. Once a year, Amun's image transported by barge from Karnak to Luxor, huge festival, spectacular sight. Another significant example, Temple of Horus at Edfu, built much later than Karnak, c. 237 to 47 BCE, but notably adheres to same basic architectural scheme. Shows remarkable longevity, adherence to established forms for over 1,000 years. Then iconic Temple of Ramses II, Abu Simbel, 19th Dynasty, c. 1279 to 1213 BCE. Remarkable rock-cut temple, carved into Nubian cliff face. Enormous 66-foot pillar statues of Ramses II as Osiris, carved as one with pillars. Truly immersive, self-aggrandizing monument to his deified status. Its 1960s relocation to save from Aswan Dam floods shows its global importance. A distinct New Kingdom form, the mortuary temple, prime example. Mortuary temple of Hatshepsut at Deir el-Bahari. Unlike earlier tombs, didn't house mummified remains. Served as worship places during Pharaoh's life. Critically, where they'd be worshipped after death, ensuring eternal cult offerings. Hatshepsut's temple notable for unique design. 3 large terraces connected by grand ramps, beautifully integrated into cliffside. Striking example of architecture harmonizing with environment.
So, to summarize the classification of Egyptian architecture, what are the main categories to understand the scope of their building achievements?
Broadly, 3 main categories reflecting purpose and form. First, tombs. Early mastabas, they're grouping into a necropolis, city of the dead. Iconic pyramids, colossal mountain-like. Later, rock-hewn temples carved into cliffs. Labyrinthine panachages, ceremonial burial chambers designed for security. Second, temples, characterized by post and lintel construction, often a forest of columns. Dense internal arrangements. Includes mortuary temples, deceased pharaohs' eternal cults. Cult temples, popular worship of gods, vibrant religious life centers. Finally, obelisks, distinct architectural elements, tall, square stone shafts, pyramid tops, monumental martyrs, sun god symbols, powerful religious conduits, often flanking temple entrances. 7. Living in style, interior design and furniture.
Beyond the monumental tombs and temples, which grab most attention, what are the spaces people actually lived in? How did they design homes? What furniture made spaces comfortable, functional, reflected status? Offers a more intimate glimpse into daily life.
Excellent question. Reveals ingenious adaptations to their environment. Architecture of homes, especially wealthy ones, cleverly fostered indoor-outdoor relationship, crucial in hot, arid climate. Often featured high windows, clerestories, providing light, passive ventilation. Hot air escapes, cooler air circulates. Open interior courts allowed air circulation, created pleasant outdoor living spaces within home, sometimes with pools, gardens, even had roof ventilators, simple but effective structures directing air down into innermost rooms, natural cooling system. Interiors often simply whitewashed, clean, bright, cool aesthetic, contrasting vibrant exteriors, frescoes. Imagine natural aircon.
So real focus on comfort, managing intense heat light. What did a typical house layout look like for the affluent who could afford more than basic shelter?
Wealthy homes typically followed a tripartite plan. Very logical, organized layout for privacy and social interaction. 3 distinct zones. First, reception room vestibule for guests, formal interactions. Second, central hall living room, often largest primary communal family area. Finally, more private areas, bedrooms, bathrooms, storage. Homes mostly mud bricks, flat roofs, relatively small slit windows kept sun out, allowed some airflow. Stairs often led to raised roof used for sleeping hot nights, extra living space, maybe food prep, enjoying cooler night air.
And the colors and decorations within these spaces must have been striking, given the vibrant tomb temple art. Was domestic color use as symbolic?
Egyptian color use was indeed very strong, highly effective, conveyed aesthetic beauty, profound symbolic meaning, primarily clear, pure primary pigments. Red, yellow, blue, plus green, white, black. Black often reserved for linear forms, edging defining strong color areas. Crisp outlines. Not synthetic colors, mineral pigments sourced, processed. Carbon for black, cobalt blue, malachite green, red yellow ochres from iron oxides, also pink hues. Even arsenic trisulfide for lemon yellow, crystalline compounds, silica, copper, calcium for other shades. Shows sophisticated understanding of natural pigments mixed with animal glue binder.
So their color palette was quite sophisticated, intentional, even in homes.
Indeed. Color application also highly symbolic, consistent, often mirroring cosmic order. Temple ceilings, sometimes wealthy homes, often deep blue, embellished with sky, stars drawings reflecting heavens. Floors typically green, mimicking fertile Nile, lush vegetation bringing outside in. Flesh tones, men often rust red, henna red, dull gold tints, outdoor work active roles. Women lighter yellow tints, sheltered indoor life. Large interior areas frequently bone ivory, neutral backdrop. Strong decorative use of medium-deep cobalt for accents, richness. Even gods identified with hues. Osiris green, Isis blue, Horus white, reinforcing deep connection between color and religious beliefs.
And how were walls treated, decorated in home temples, filled with those detailed tomb painting narratives?
Plaster was primary surfacing material, applied to brick mud base, providing smooth canvas. Affluent home temples also used stone, even glazed tiles adding luxury, durability. Ornamental treatments diverse, rich, elaborate paintings, intricate inlays, carved reliefs, even hung mats, rugs, decoration, insulation. Walls typically divided into 3 horizontal sections. Dado, lowest often solid color, simple pattern. Main field, middle largest primary area for narrative symbolic scenes. Frieze, uppermost decorative band, often geometric floral motifs. Wall painting decoration, bright colors applied to incised carvings, often low relief on soft limestone. Subjects varied. Daily activities, feasting, entertainment, historical records, religious scenes, often filling entire wall, rich continuous narrative. Figures followed specific conventions, face, legs, feet profile, shoulder, one eye, front view, law of frontality. Men reddish-brown larger, women yellow, smaller. Enemies, slaves, typically darkest, smallest, reflecting status, often contorted positions. Examples like Queen Nefertari offering to Isis or before Thoth show stunning frescoes, reliefs illustrating rituals, narratives, vibrant window into their world.
What about floor coverings? As decorative as walls or more utilitarian?
Most widely used. simple mud plaster or bricks. Practical, readily available for common homes. Liquefied gypsum, concrete mixture, also common, smoother, more durable floor, sometimes polished. Stone, less frequent for general home flooring, but used as lining where moisture was problem. Kitchens, storage. Stone slabs, notably used in bathrooms. Ritual cleansing areas, shows concern for hygiene, practicality. For comfort decoration, woven mats, rugs from reeds plant fibers used.
And the decorative motifs adorning spaces, objects, furniture, architecture seem drawn heavily from nature, religion, most common, symbolic.
Absolutely, entire visual vocabulary rich for symbolism. Decorative motifs drew from several profound sources. Floral motifs, very popular. Lotus flower, bud open papyrus plant. Not just beautiful, powerful symbols of purity, creation, significantly. Unification of upper lotus, lower papyrus, Egypt. Seen on friezes, columns, furniture. Animal forms another rich source. Sphinx guarding pyramids, symbolizing pharaohs, Ra. Sun disk, vulture, eagle with stretched wings, signified divine protection, especially for king. Sacred beetle, scarab, potent symbol of eternal life, resurrection, regeneration. Amulets, jewelry, falcon, Horus, ubiquitous, especially royal context, signifying divine kingship. Other animals like lions, ducks, hippos, and decoration. Also intricate geometric forms. Coils, feathers, spiral lotus borders, continuous coil spirals, quadruple spirals. Sophisticated understanding of repetitive, interlocking patterns, bringing visual rhythm. Finally, hieroglyphics, not just writing, used symbolically, decoratively, conveying profound words concepts. Examples, Neb, stability, endurance. Sma, union, powerful, Wijat, eye of Horus, healing protection. Ever-present Ankh, integrated as aesthetic elements reinforcing meaning. Art constantly reminded of beliefs, values.
Column capitals also show this strong and natural inspiration. Makes temples feel like extensions of landscape, pillars growing from fertile earth.
Indeed. Each column consistently had base, shaft, capital. Capitals often directly inspired by Nile flora. Palm column capital, palmiform, resembling bundled palm fronds. Papyrus campaniform, inverted bell. Open papyrus flower. Lotus bud, lotiform. Closed lotus bud, often non-secular buildings, symbol of creation. Uniquely, Hathor capitals, distinctive bovine head of goddess Hathor, instantly recognizable, emphasizing divine feminine, not just structural. Powerful decorative symbolic features enhancing sacred atmosphere. Shafts could be circular or ribbed, adding visual appeal.
Finally, let's talk furniture. What was actually in an Egyptian home? How elaborate given the incredible royal tomb craftsmanship?
Wealthy houses furnished with chairs, stools, tables, chests of remarkable beauty, craftsmanship, often mirroring royal sophistication. Stools incredibly common, widespread seating, authority symbol even for commoners. Egyptians even invented collapsible folding stool useful for army commanders. Portability, practical. Featured concave forms, wicker leather seats, often decorative lion's paws, curved leg ends. Blend of function, artistry. Chests, important household item, mainly storage, clothes, linens, valuables, often highly decorated. Intricate inlays, contrasting woods, ivory, applied gold, silver. Functional works of art, reflecting owner's status. Tables for various uses, eating, writing, gaming. Typically splayed legs, perimeter stretchers for stability, often low for seated users. Chairs more elaborate, reserved for higher status. Legs commonly ended with beautifully carved clawed animal feet, lion's paws, or distinctive dog leg forms mimicking hind and forelegs. Tutankhamun's ceremonial throne exemplifies pinnacle. Elaborate ebony structure, encrusted with gold ivory inlays, painted symbolic imagery. Seating function clearly subordinate to displaying wealth, grandeur, power. Statement piece. Chairs of Queen Hedifir's Hatnofer also survive beautifully crafted wood, inclined backs, woven rush caning seats, high comfort level. For sleeping, beds or couches, often decorative footboards, sometimes curved side rails raising head. Instead of soft pillows, rigid ivory headrests like Shu, air god from Tut's tomb, commonly used. Supported head allowed air circulation and heat, protected elaborate hairstyles.
And the craftsmanship behind this furniture. What sophisticated techniques created such intricate, durable pieces lasting millennia?
Craftsmanship remarkably advanced. Used sophisticated woodworking like mortise and tenon joints, strong, durable construction without modern fasteners, sometimes reinforced with pegs. Seats often woven rush or leather comfort, flexibility. Finishing involved varnish, gesso-prepared surfaces for painting, gilding, added protection sheen. Furniture frequently accented with carved animal forms, lion, swan, duck heads, integrating motifs into daily objects. Feet often carved as animal paws on small blocks or dog-leg forms. Added unique aesthetic, symbolism, level of detail, durability truly impressive. Outro.
Wow, that was truly a deep dive into ancient Egypt. From the foundational flow of the Nile giving birth to it all, to the intricate details of their art, the complex structures of politics and power, the profound, all-encompassing influence of religion, and even the very fabric and furniture of daily life. It's clear this was a civilization built on order, deep-seated belief, and an incredible, almost obsessive dedication to the eternal.
What we've seen is a civilization that, while deeply rooted in tradition and adhering to strict conventions in almost every aspect, also experienced periods of significant change and remarkable artistic and societal innovation, particularly clear during the New Kingdom. Their art and architecture especially reveal a profound, pervasive concern for the afterlife and the divine nature of their rulers, a core belief underpinning so much monumental output, defining their enduring legacy.
So after this incredible journey through millennia, what does this all mean for us, the learners today, looking back at such an enduring, fascinating legacy?
Well, this raises an important question, doesn't it? What lessons can we draw from a civilization so seemingly obsessed with eternity and strict order, yet paradoxically so adaptive and dynamic in its expressions of power and art? How does their commitment to detailed, symbolic representation, where every element held deeper meaning, influence our understanding of history? Does it even resonate within our own visual culture and design principles today? Their methods of conveying information, securing power, preparing for the afterlife through art and architecture were incredibly effective, enduring for thousands of years. It makes you wonder, what aspects of our own society are we building to last for millennia? And what will they tell future generations about our deepest beliefs?
Something to ponder long after this deep dive ends. Thank you for joining us on this journey through ancient Egypt. We hope you feel significantly more well-informed and perhaps even a little inspired by the enduring legacy of this incredible civilization. Until next time.